Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be showing you how to make custom skulls. So what we use is the player head skull, and the player head is, unlike the others, customizable in terms of what the actual skin of the head is. So of course by default it's a Steve, and when you place it in game that's what it will appear as, or nowadays it can be Alex as well. But obviously in Minecraft you can change your skin away from a Steve, and we can also change the skin of that skull. Now, if you play lots of multiplayer servers, then you're definitely no stranger to this concept, as skulls are used in loads of different servers, and it's a really good skill to have. So what I'm going to be showing you today is the functions inside of the API in order to create custom skulls. So there's two ones that we're going to cover. We're going to cover how to set the skull to a specific player. So say you have a player name in mind, or you can set it to a completely custom texture, of which we can find hundreds of thousands of them online. So I think the best way to do this is we'll create a command, and that command will give us the item stack. So we'll create a skull command. So right click, new, Kotlin class, skull command. Okay, and then I will go ahead and register the command. So we'll pop it in the plugin.yml. So commands skull. Just like that. Add any more information if you want to, like a description or so on. And then we'll do get command skull, set executor, new, skull command, just like that. And then what I'll also do is not null it, because I know it's not null because I've just put it in my plugin.yml. I'll go ahead and head to our command, and we will command executor. So we'll implement command executor, and then we'll implement the function, the onCommand function. Okay, good stuff. So what we're going to do now is, well, firstly, we're going to have to check that they're not a player, because if the person who sent this is a console or a command block, then I can create the skull, but I'm not going to be able to give them the skull, because of course they are not. They don't exist on the server. So we'll simply do if sender is not an instance of player, then return false. Okay, so by this point we know that a player has registered, has run the /skull command. So what better else to do than to just create the skull? So we firstly just create this like a normal item stack. It's nothing fancy. We've done item stacks 100 times before, and there's a whole video on it if you need it. So we'll do val skull equals item stack material dot, and then this is where you have to be particular. We need to select the player head. Now I'm aware there's others, so there's loads of, for example, legacy skull. So if you're not, by the way, if you are on an older version, you will probably have to use the legacy skull, but we're going to use the player head because of course we love to be on latest versions. Now the function that I am going to show you today, which is part of the Spigot API, is only version 1.18 and above. No, of course that's absolutely fine, because we are many versions ahead of that, as you always should be. It's always great to develop on the latest version because A, you don't have issues like this, and B, you get to take advantage of all the new features and everybody can be prosperous together. So try and be on the latest version if you can. If for some reason you are below version 1.18, then what you should do, join our Discord, we'll send you code and we'll help you out in any way that we can. So 1.18 and above, you're absolutely fine. Okay, so we create our item stack of the player head, and then we run .apply. So this is using Kotlin scope function to say that anything within this block of code here is operating within the context of this variable here. So what we'll do is firstly get the meta, although we're not going to get a regular meta, we're going to get what's called a skull meta. So we'll do val meta equals item meta, so that's the item meta from the item stack that's just been created. And then we're going to do as skull meta. Now that's going to cast it, and we don't need to do any sort of null checking or anything like that, because I know that as long as I've given this a material of player head, then this will have generated a skull meta. So now if we use meta dot, you'll see we have loads of options to do with a skull. We can set the player profile. So we're going to use both of those functions to decide how we can set the actual texture that the skull uses. So what we'll do is we'll create two skulls, and we'll start with the owning player, and we'll copy and paste this code. So we'll start with the owning player. So we're going to do meta.set owning player. Now you will notice this can also take an offline player, which essentially means that you can do bucket.get offline player, use the name, and you can put in anyone in there. So if you want to just make your own skull to have a bit of fun, then what you can do is, instead of doing bucket.get offline player, you can give sender. Now the reason for that is because sender, of course we know at this point, is a player, and a player is a type of offline player. So player somewhere down the line inherits offline player. Now I realize that's a bit misleading because a player is not offline. However, an offline player is essentially just really a link of your UID to name with a couple extra properties. So there's no reason why it couldn't. So what you can simply do is set the player to either a player variable that you have, or if you want to do it to somebody who isn't online, then just bucket.getOfflinePlayer and then the name of the player. Also the UID if you have it. So I'll just do it to myself because I'm a player who's online. And then very simply, we do item meta equals meta. So we've got to reassign the meta as always. So this is a skull for a specific player. So what I'll do is I'll give this skull to myself. So I'll do sender.inventory.addItem and we'll do skull. But what I'll do is I'll rename this since we're going to do a different one. I'll call this player skull. Okay. Perfect. So now when I fire this up in game in a few minutes time, we will see that I will have a skull of myself. Now this is the one that doesn't require much heavy lifting. That's a pretty simple one to do. It's built into the API well, and there's no fuss. Now I can't say the same for the next one. We're going to have a little bit of messing around to do with setting the texture of the custom skull, but take some comfort in the fact that the player one is easy. So let's go ahead and we'll just copy and paste this. We'll rename it. So you call it anything you want, but I'm going to call it custom skull just because I know it's got the custom texture. And then I'll just take away this middle line. Okay, so this here is the basis for creating a skull. Now I'm conscious that if I want a custom texture, I have to do a little bit more code. So let's just get started. Okay, so what we're going to do is create something called a player profile. I'll give us a bit of space for this. So we're going to create a val. We'll just call it profile. And we have to do bucket.getServer.createProfile. And then we'll simply use a random UID. Now you can hopefully see by this line of code that our intention is essentially to trick the server and then the client into thinking that this is the head of an actual player. What we're actually going to do is use a fake UID and then just inject in some texture value to update how it looks. So we've got the profile, and then from there we need to get the textures. So we're going to do textures.skin equals, and then we're going to create a new URL, which is essentially just a string on steroids, representing, of course, a web URL. So we create a new URL, and then in here we put the actual string to the URL. So this is where it gets a bit messy, but we'll live with it. So you want to pop in the exact URL. In fact, I'm even going to write it out so we can write it out together, and there's going to be no mistakes. We'll do http /textures.minecraft.net/texture/ and then we're going to pop in our texture value. Now we'll do that in a second, but make sure that this URL is exactly as it's written here. If it's not, then this won't work. This URL, by the way, will be copy and pasted alongside this video so that you can copy and paste it if you like. So we've got the URL here, and then we need to put after this slash the texture value of our custom skull. So if you don't know what that is, don't worry, I'm about to explain it. So as I said, we're going to be tricking the client into taking what is a valid texture value. So these are heads that have been created as far as Minecraft knows on actual accounts. So for example, people have changed their skin to this head. Minecraft or Mojang has given it an actual value, and then people have pulled that value, and then we put the value inside of here so that we can use it. So what I have here and what will be attached alongside this video is a massive database of 60,000 custom heads, as you can see. Now there's loads of custom head sites out there. I've just picked one that I know to be reliable in the past, minecraftheads.com. And you can see we can search 60,000. So let's say that I want an apple head. I think that could look cool. So I'll do apple. I'll search it. And you'll see we have quite a few options here. So let's say that I think this here is a pretty good apple. So I'm going to click on it. And then you can see, by the way, firstly, it gives you a give command, a set block command, all this sort of stuff. What we're going to do for our plugin, we're going to keep scrolling down once you've found the head that you want. By the way, pause the video, go find a really cool head. Don't do the same one as me. Do something cool. I'm going to scroll right to the bottom once you've found it. And we're going to take the Minecraft URL here. You can see it's even labeled with the texture value. And in fact, would you like to even see what happens when we go to it? So we'll go to that link, and you can see it's actually the skin of that head. So all we need to do is copy this, and then we're going to paste the texture value right here. Or if you don't feel comfortable copying this whole thing, then what you can do is just click on this, take this whole thing with you, and then just paste it in there. Okay, cool. So that is now the URL. I hope you can kind of understand what we're doing. We're basically assigning a texture that has already been created and verified by Minecraft, and that's all we're setting the skull to, basically. So now what we can do is reassign the textures. So we do profile.setTextures, and then we'll do textures. Okay, and then the only last thing we need to do is get the item meta. So we have that up here. So we'll do meta.setPlayerProfile, and then we're going to make player profile equal to profile. Okay, there we go. So that, guys, is a custom skull. So we'll do the last thing before I yap on for a minute. We'll do sender.inventory, add item, and we will add the custom skull. Okay, good stuff, guys. So as you can see on our screen, the player skull was a very simple one, just one function. And actually, to be fair, the custom skull wasn't that complicated. We just have to create a random profile and then get the textures, set a value within the textures to an official Minecraft link and a texture value, which essentially returns the skin. And then we are resetting the textures back to the profile that we created and then setting the profile to the skull meta. So it's not too complex. I'd say the only hard part is kind of understanding the whole texture side of things. But don't forget, this website is here if you want to search any cool heads. Just go to custom heads at the top, or follow the link attached to this video and you can search any heads. Let's say, for example, we search can. We could get a Coke can, maybe to decorate your map. You see, there we go. We got all those cans. Cool candles there as well. Let's say I search Pepsi. There we go. Loads of Pepsi cans. Let's say I search Twitter. We got Twitters. So you can kind of see what I mean. There's literally anything. Okay, so this looks pretty good to me. So all we need to do is just one last thing. We need to return false at the end. That's just something that the API requires us to do. Yeah, so I think we'll call it there. This looks good. So we'll go ahead and fire this up on the server. And hopefully when I run /skull, I should get these two things given to me. So Gradle, run server, and I'll see you guys in a sec. Alright, so I'm joining the server now, and you'll see that I'm on my map. And so when I do /skull, I've been given two skulls. The first one is my skull, as you can see. In fact, we'll go in F5 mode so you can see it even better. So we have my skull there. The second one is the apple. Now, of course, that's only kind of cool, but why don't we go ahead and put them... Well, first thing we can do is put them on our head. So if I put my skull on my head, I just end up with a bit of a bigger head. It looks like I've got some sort of infection. And then if I put the apple on top of my head, you can see we're wearing an apple head. And the coolest part about this is like no mods or anything. All players can see this. So we'll go ahead and place them on the ground. So we've got my skull there. And we have apples. There you go. Something I could do with eating a few more of. So there you go, guys. That is custom skulls. So I've shown you just how to set a player and a custom one. Don't forget the website that I linked to you. That is a monumental resource for collecting skulls. If you're having any trouble with getting this link or anything like that, because I know it's a little bit sticky, then just let us know in the Discord. We'll come help you. Other than that, thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.